You might have gone to the website to look for the recap episode. I tried to put it up last week, but that didn't work out for me. So, this is a recap of the beginning episodes. Don't worry though, episode 7 will still be here this week. I just didn't want anyone waiting for the recap to get too far behind. Check back on Wednesday. If you're a first-time listener, you should probably stop now because there are some major spoilers coming in this episode. In fact, I strongly recommend starting at episode 1 because the story is told in chronological order. I also want to put this out there. There are pictures and transcripts on the webpage, convictedpod.com. And while I love interacting with you on social media, at convictedpod or at Brooke Giddings, the most frequently asked question I get is, where are the pictures? So, one more time, there are pictures and transcripts on the webpage, convictedpod.com. But please, by all means, ask me any other questions you might have via email or social media. Oh yeah, and there's also a Facebook discussion group. It's a closed group, so your comments don't show up on your wall, but you can just ask to join and someone will let you in. It's called the Official Actual Innocence and Convicted Podcast Discussion Group. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's fun, people. Here by request, I'm Brooke, and this is episode 5.5 of Convicted.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Richard Nicolas,
an inmate at a Maryland Correctional Facility. This call will be recorded and monitored. To accept this call, press 0 now. To decline this call, thank you for using Global Tail Link.
Are people who make bad choices, the people we might consider despicable or unable to be reformed, less entitled to justice? How do we make the determination who deserves justice and who doesn't? I mean, you don't deserve justice because of your religion, because you smoked pot, because you answered the door in a towel, because you didn't put your child in a car seat? If we support injustice because we don't like the person being judged, we've undermined our entire legal system and put everyone we know at risk for wrongful conviction. Richard Nicolas was 2 years old when she was murdered. Her father, Richard Nicolas, was convicted for that crime and sentenced to life in prison. The thing is, what if he didn't do it? What if he did do it? What if the facts have become so distorted that we'll never know? Justice. A fair trial. That's really what this podcast is all about. Richard Nicolas grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. His parents were both highly educated and intelligent people. His father was from Haiti, and his mother was from Baltimore. He described her as a light-skinned black woman. He described himself as a light-skinned black man with green eyes. He has one sister, Mary. She's a year younger, but she's just as protective as any older sibling I've ever met. She's got his back. That's how love works. Richard developed a stutter at the same time as he was starting school and learning English.
Actually, French was my original language. I was actually born at Sinai Hospital. Then the family moved up to Canada. Sinai Hospital is in Baltimore, Maryland. Then we moved up to Canada, stayed up there for, a little while, a few years. Then I had gotten asthma really, really bad. So my father took me home, which was Haiti. My father's Haitian. Then after that, we had moved back to my mom's home with her sisters, which was, Baltimore, Maryland. So during that English speaking process, I, started stuttering my head off, and I remember, and when I came down to the United States, I was taught English, and during that language changing process, that's when my speech impediment came forth for some reason. I don't know why. With my speech impediment, it comes from a birthing accident. I was told that I kept on trying to come out feet first, and my, I guess, baby doctor, lack of a better word, reached in with a pair of forceps, and he grabbed my head and out head first. Well, what he did was he bent my head, which, damaged my speech center. So I was told that when they taught me English, going to a whole lot of speech therapists and really having some serious issues all through elementary school. It was a horrible handicap that I obviously still, suffer from, but it's that's how it started.
He's stuttered basically since he can remember, and he's not ashamed of who he is or how he talks. This was his response when I told him that audio editing could remove his stutter.
I'd rather you leave it all in, just because of the fact that if you have some guy saying that he stutters, but he never stutters, I'm not ashamed at all of my speech impediment. If you can see me face to face, you can see what my techniques are to get my words out. It really is quite an effort at times, but that's just, how things are. So I'm not ashamed of how, God made me.
He was judged, though, maybe even bullied for the way he talked. He dropped out of high school and went to an alternative school where he got his GED. He pursued several career tracks. He went to college. He had fun with his friends. He got married. He got divorced. And though no formal charges or evidence exists, his ex-wife told the Sun that Richard had hit her.
But Debbie had divorced me grounds being abuse. There wasn't ever a police report, hospital visit, or anything indicating that. It was her final kick in the teeth for me as we were signing the paperwork, and I didn't think about the fact that was going to follow me, because it's to be honest with you, I really didn't know any better. Debbie was my first wife. However, I was her fourth husband.
He had 2 jobs. His first job was at CopyFix, fixing copy machines on a military base. His second job was for a private ambulance company. He was an EMT, but not the kind that responds to emergencies like gunshot wounds, more like the kind who transported a sick person to the hospital. I've learned that EMTs are the most entry-level position in the pre-hospital medical field. During the course of his job as an EMT, he met Lisa. They had a one-night stand, and from that one night came something beautiful. His daughter, Asia.
Asia had a very bubbly personality, and I thought she was a beautiful child. I'm a light-skinned black man, and Asia's mom is very dark-skinned, and Asia was kind of in between the both of us skin tone wise, and I thought that she was just a really, really pretty child. She had a very bubbly, bouncing off the wall type personality. She was always smiling, happy to see people.
At times he withheld child support. He didn't have regular visitation. He didn't spend all his waking hours with her. He had a life insurance policy on her. It was a Gerber life policy, the kind that's designed specifically for children. It would have helped save her a future. If things had turned out differently, that choice would have come across as sensible, going above and beyond even. On July 26, 1996, Richard, Asia, and her mother had plans to go on an outing. They were going to see the Hunchback of Notre Dame at the Golden Ring Mall in Maryland.
After I got off work from the photocopier company, all day long, I was like bragging to my coworkers and telling my customers and stuff up on the Army base that I was going to take my kid out to the movie theater, that we were going to go see the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it's I was really looking forward to it. Friday night, I was actually supposed to drive the ambulance, but I was playing hooky so that I could take my kid out.
It turned out, though, that Asia's mother was sick. This night turned out to be the first and only time Richard and Asia went out together. He picked Asia up from her mother's house and strapped her into the front seat of his car. It was a 1990 light blue 2-door Chevy Cavalier. He didn't have a car seat. He was a first-time dad, and though that's not a justification, it was the reason that the car seat didn't occur to him.
It's Asia. Asia was a big kid, so it's, she seemed to fit fine to me. I didn't actually have a child safety seat, which sounds bad, but it's so I strapped her in up front with me, and that's just how we did it.
Unbeknownst to Richard, the movie had changed the way movies do on Friday nights. So when they arrived at the theater, not wanting to call the daddy-daughter date to an end, he bought a ticket for the 8 p.m. showing of Pinocchio. Not the Disney classic, the remake, the one with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. The receipt for the ticket was time-stamped at 6:50 p.m. The pair then wandered through the mall, window shopping, and eventually stopped at a photo booth. With a big, open-mouthed smile, Asia hammed it up for the camera one last time. She was going to the movies with her daddy. What happened next is disputed. I'll give you both versions. First Richard's version, and then the state's. Richard stated that the two watched the movie with popcorn and drinks in hand. Then they left when it was over. He doesn't remember if they saw the credits. On the way home, something terrible happened. First, another car started to be aggressive with him, and then it bumped his car. He turned at the first intersection that he saw to get away from the other driver, but they followed him. He pulled over to the shoulder on the left side of the road. I've been to that spot. There is no right shoulder. I would have probably pulled to the left too. The other car came up behind them, so Richard gets out to confront them. He's mad and ready for a fight.
The story that he explained to the police and explained to trial was that he got followed by a rogue road rage driver, and instead of driving his car to safety, he ends up driving his car down a desolate road, Bowley's Lane, pulls over to the left side of the car. Then he emerges from the car. The shooting occurs. The driver drives off. He goes on foot.
Is his statement of the case that his driver's door was open and the shooting occurred through the front door?
Through the passenger door with the window down.
Well, I thought she was shot on the left side of the face.
That's correct.
But she turned her head, certainly. I mean, isn't that what...
I guess that was the theory.
Richard is terrified and traumatized. Already out of his car, noticing that his daughter is not moving, he runs for help. There's a light on at the gas station nearby. The state's theory is different. Very different. Though it starts and ends the same. Richard and Asia go to the mall, and Richard buys a ticket to the movie and takes his daughter to the photo booth where they take a picture together. This is where things start to be explained differently.
And after taking the photo in the photo booth, the state's theory was that Richard went back out to the parking lot, killed Asia in the car, left her in the car, and then established himself further an alibi by going in and seeing the 8 p.m. showing of the movie. And thereafter, when the movie was over, went back to the car, drove the car to Bowley's Lane, parked it on the wrong side of the road, ran up to the Texaco station,
He goes into the gas station and asks the person behind the counter to call for help. He talks to the 911 operator, but will never get to hear it because it seems those tapes are missing. At one point during the call, the 911 operator tells Richard to calm down. He goes outside where Officer Hannah is pulled up by the station. The two men go back to the car and Asia. Asia had been shot through the left eye, and her body was slumped against the center of the car. Protocol was broken, and she was removed before emergency personnel arrived. Richard was arrested and a year later stood trial for the murder of his daughter. He had 3 attorneys: Howard Cardin, Arthur Cheslock, and Christina Gutierrez. Christina Gutierrez. I'm sure that name sounds familiar. It seems that there's some crossover between the players of this case and that of Adnan Syed. The prosecutors were Roberta Siskind and Sharon May. At least one of those names might also have a familiar ring to it. If you've seen The Keepers and heard the story about the red convertible, you've heard the voice of Sharon May. It seems there's also some crossover between this case and the case of Sister Kathy. I tried to include bits of the trial in the recap, but I just couldn't do it justice in a short amount of time. Episodes 5 and 6 are the trial. Listen to them closely, treat each word like it's a crisis. Then decide who is telling the truth and who isn't. So do I think he did it?
I don't know what the facts are of this case. I am not the jury of this man's guilt or innocence.
I don't know. The thing is, innocence or guilt doesn't feel like the important issue to me. When a person takes a job that protects our safety and our freedom, they don't get to cut corners. They don't get to kick each other under the table in glee for an inaccurate testimony. They don't get to decide when protocol matters and when it doesn't. When a system allows people and objects to slip through the cracks, eventually the system will break. In a broken system, no one gets justice, and that's terrifying. I'll see you Wednesday for episode 7. Thanks for listening.